like to introduce this special guest today. So to start off with, I again welcome all our students who are in this platform and all the foreign delegates who have joined and the diplomats who have joined from from all around the world today to this platform. And on top of that, all our university students from our counterpart universities, along with some of the staff members from that. And finally, to start with this session, we'll move on to some expressions from our chairman, Mr. Bandula Igodage. So, Chairman, over to you.
Thank you, Kaushali. So due to technical error, I joined the last minute anyway. It's my great pleasure and privilege to welcome Mr. Beadle Navaraj, SVP and Senior Director, WNS, UK and European and the Europe. So as initiative of Dr. Rohan Korala, is very warmly welcome you on behalf of our CEO, Mr. Roshan Egodage, our students population, and also all our directors, staff, and everybody. I would like to very warmly welcome you, Mr. Beadle Navaraj, so being with us in spite of a busy schedule. So it's a great opportunity to have you here with us on the next 1 hour or so. Frankly, for your information, APIT in Sri Lanka known for their quality education. Whole objective is basically we explain that earlier presenters also. We are 100% assurance given to all our the students for their academic excellence, but we as APIT we expect more than that, and we need to build more leadership skills among them. So we need to have future leaders with them. So therefore we want to give them a very surrounded knowledge update, and also we want to have a direct interaction with you, like people like you, like opinion leaders in the world. So that is the main objective, and we request all our students to get the maximum out of your knowledge and have the direct interaction, and to explore all your experiences and gain their knowledge. So that is the whole objective of this event. So once again, thank you very much and very warmly welcome you here for the important factor. And for the expert panel, we have our own director, Mr. Rajiv Kasichetty, and our head of IT school, Professor Priyanta Kumaravadu. So both Rajiv and Priyanta, thank you very much for joining us. And as usual, you are there to serve the society along with your own students population. So without further ado, I would like to thank Dr. Rohan Korala for his great initiative. In fact, Mr. Beadle, the Rohan managed to connect the globe. So even today for the seminar, we have a lot of viewers and the listeners from all around the world. So this is sort of an international event where the beneficiary will be all APIT students and the listeners. So thank you very much once again. Over to you, Dr. Rohan Korala, and also Kaushali. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And that is Bandula Igodage, Vice President of Nestle and also President of the Sri Lanka Industrial Association and Chairman of APIT. Thank you very much, sir. So we have with us an outstanding personality who has connected us from London. He's actually based in UK, one of the top products of Sri Lanka in the IT sphere. Beadle is the Vice President Operations for WNS in UK and Europe. Yes, fantastic 4 years of experience driving strategy, transformation, and operations for varied industries, including banking, financial services, and insurance. 16 plus years experience in setting up, managing global business services, shared services, and leading global sales, solution designing, service transition, transformation, and management of operations for global clients, which includes Fortune 500 and the FTSE 100 across multiple geographies within in-depth working knowledge, experience in the UK, North America, Europe, APAC regions. Beadle got various credentials in multidisciplinary fields of studies as a Doctor of Business Administration in Strategy, University of Wales, UK final year, Master of Business Administration, University of Cardiff Metropolitan, BSc Honours in Applied Accounting, University of Oxford Brookes, UK. He's a fellow of the Chartered Member, Chartered Institute of UK, Chartered Member, MCFI, Chartered Institute of Securities and Investment, UK, member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, MCIM, UK, Advanced Diploma in Accounting and Business, ACCA, UK, Certificate in London Market, and LMI, Chartered Institute of Brokers, UK, Certified Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, Six Sigma Management Institute, US Certified in Robotics Process Automation, and UPath Certified Agile Practitioner at WNS Global Services. Ladies and gentlemen, it's actually an honor for me to introduce our speaker today out of London, who is Vice President for Operations in WNS. And our panel consists of fantastic personality, which happens to be the Chief Operating Officer, Executive Director of one of the top 25 companies in Sri Lanka, commercial credit and finance leasing, Mr. Rajiv Kasichetty, and of course, a global academic who teaches around the world, Professor Priyantha Kumaravadu, who is also going to be on the panel, who heads actually the computing school of APIT Sri Lanka. So, I mean, we got a fantastic team here today. Can I hand over the mantle to Beadle for his view?
Thank you, Dr. Ruhanta, and thank you for that warm welcome. And also thank you to Mr. Bandula, the chairman, and the rest of the panel and the dignitaries. It's a pleasure having me with you guys, and looking forward to spend the next 1 hour and share some of the insights where I have seen across the globe in terms of the trends and the markets, how it is behaving. So happy to be here today with you guys. So I think probably we could actually move to the presentation directly, if that is okay.
Lovely, Beadle. Beadle, you'd like to just give a quick view of what you do, because this definition just gave only a very succinct view, but can we just get a view of what you do in your part of the world, please?
Yeah. So I started my career with banking, working for a bank almost 8 years time, and then I moved to WNS, with WNS almost 16 years, working for multinational companies across the globe who are part of FTSE 100, Fortune 500, and many other multinational organizations. So from WNS standpoint, it's a BPM company. It's one of the largest BPM company, leading BPM company in the world, listed in New York Stock Exchange, more than 4 billion market capital at this point of time, with around 45,000 people in 55 different locations. And we help organizations to transform their operating model, their processes, target operating structures, and also we provide services from the domains across different verticals, and we support digital and technology transformation as well.
So you handle how many countries, Beadle, out of there?
So we are operating from around 16 different countries, but our clients are around 400 to 450 plus clients across the globe, starting from ANZ to APAC, Europe, Middle East, UK, and North America.
Oh, lovely. Let me share the screen. Beadle. Is that okay?
Yeah, great. I hope it's on the presentation, or rather on a full screen mode, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's move on to the next slide. So digital is one of the most abused word, probably next to the word sorry, right? Because at the moment, if you look at around the world, everyone is talking about digitization, technology transformation, automation, hyper automation, intelligent automation, extreme automation, etc. And the world has evolved, as you see, from where we have actually seen multiple industry revolutions. And as you know that we are in industry 4.0, which is a digital era that we call it as, where we have actually started to look at things differently through Internet of Things, automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, cognitive computing, etc. And this is where we kind of bring everything to practice as well. Obviously, a lot of people would have actually learned through their studies. They would have actually seen through demos. They would have seen videos in YouTube. But organizations actually bring that into life, right? And with digital kind of accelerating the current industries, the COVID situation has really helped organizations to open up the way that they were traditionally looking at things, in the way they doing business, etc. And some of the studies showing, including the study from McKinsey, how each of these global footprints, they are looking at accelerating the digitalization in their businesses, including looking at their interactions. That's where the first touch point you will have with your external clients, customers, your third-party providers, suppliers, the end-to-end supply chain, and your investors, etc. So there are multiple platforms already organizations actually kind of evolving with, but the study shows that especially in Asia Pacific, it will be at least minimum 4 to 5 years acceleration we will see, where companies will move faster to move to digital and manage more remotely and virtually across the world. Similarly, if we could go to the next slide, shows in terms of the products and services. So the products and services, traditionally how we were actually having or consuming through our channels and distributions are changing. And every product and service now actually have a digital touch as well, which actually brings better experience, faster reach, and actually a whole kind of end-to-end experience, which kind of brings to that product or service to differentiate with the rest of the market as well. And again, the study shows the digitalization of services and products, at least you see to a certain extent it's getting digitalized, but the services are getting more now looking at how to digitalize the service, and that is getting accelerated. More than 10 years plus time they are thinking it'll be fast forward whatever they were planning to do in 10 years time, but they will be doing now because of the pandemic experience where the organizations had. If we move to the next slide, it talks about, it's quite important aspect here, the mindset, and we call it as digital mindset. How do you kind of have a medical or a digital mindset when you are leading organizations for transformation? Most of the CXOs, they were looking at digital as one of the levers to save cost and to look at some of the products to reach market faster and to create different differentiators, right? But the study shows, looking at the comparison between 2017 and 2020, the mindset has evolved as well. Because cost saving is only just 10% people are looking at. It's not the major driver anymore for digitalizing your process or your product or service. It's more than cost saving. How do you modernize your capabilities, and how do you stand out as creating a competitive advantage with your competitors? And how do you change your whole model, right? There are organizations have radically modernized their business models because of digital interventions. So it's not a cost saving lever. End of the day, being digital is expensive to some extent, but when you have economy of scale, that's where you kind of really make a difference from cost standpoint. So that's the balance that some of the companies are actually kind of looking at, because for certain organizations, they thought, okay, their labor is much cheaper than digital, especially from Asia, right? And that's where the outsourcing and offshoring organizations start to thrive, because you start to give cost arbitrage on your employees, where you can get the same job done from Asia for lesser price. But that is not anymore a kind of a value addition. It's given. You have to actually have that competitive advantage with the global scale that we are running organizations. But on the other side, there are visionary leaders who think far ahead. And one of the organizations, even just before the pandemic hit and the lockdown came in last year, they actually envisaged an organization, fully digital-based organization. So paper-free, file-free, cupboard-free, and hot desking organization, right? They built a beautiful organization. We were part of that. And that organization actually thrived very well when the pandemic hit. And they didn't even know that there was going to be a pandemic. And they had a visionary term where they want to actually think 5 years, 10 years ahead of the digital journey. And when the pandemic hit, we actually switched off from working from home to working from home within less than 12 hours globally. So likewise, the mindset is quite important for the leaders and for the employees to think how they can actually bring digital to their process, what they are doing. The automation actually drives a big chunk of the digital era, right? So we have an era with our basic computing to technology infrastructure. Then we kind of evolved from ERP-based technology systems to SaaS-based, more customizable, less coding, right? So low code or no code technology-based platforms, etc. We started to evolve the way the technology can be developed and bringing agile, etc. They actually move very fast in terms of what they can produce, and also they want to actually fail very fast if they are in the wrong direction, so they can actually realign their product development and move on as they want to. So the automation has evolved over a period. We kind of started with very basic automation, probably back in like 2010 onwards. We only talk about RPA and some level of artificial intelligence, etc. So the RPA stands for robotic process automation. It actually came as a patch maker, because when you have different systems in different platforms, different codes where the systems don't really talk to each other, where you can't really create a API in between systems, the RPA kind of came as a perfect tool to match the system A and the system B data integration. And also then we started to kind of leverage the RPA to do some of the human elements of the processes, where it started to mimic the human processes, and then we started to train the RPAs where it kind of reached a certain level of accuracy in terms of how it can actually deliver the same as how a human will do the process. Then we move to intelligent automation. That's the era we are currently in. We are actually more actually working towards RPA, ML, NLP, OCR, AI, you name it, everything what you know, which kind of driving currently the automations across the global. And the next step, what we are actually anticipating is something called extreme automation, where you will have a very integrated kind of a view or a holistic view of your whole automation. It's not only about digital or a technology, but it will kind of infuse a good amount of process re-engineering and talent development along with technology and digital, and plus data, because data is playing a major role in business currently. For everything, the data is like a mining. So you can do wonders if you have a good data. And that's where now we are looking at how do you bring your domain, digital and data together with people, and how do you kind of bring a more holistic view of a digital or automation future. This is just a comparison about how people see today's automation versus tomorrow's automation from process, talent, technology, and data standpoint. As I mentioned, process is becoming more end-to-end at this point of time. We always look at as a one office concept to ensure not you kind of look at in silos. So it's quite important to look at end-to-end of your department, starting for your front end, back office, middle office, everything is integrated process, so that can actually give better experience to the customer and the internal stakeholders as well. Similarly, talent. We always want to upskill our people, our talent, and we now look at automation first and then outsourcing or the people element, because we want to ensure whatever it could be automated should be actually leveraged with automation, and then wherever you have human element or judgmental element that you need to be used in process or decision making, then those are the ones we look at where we can upskill the people who can perform those kind of jobs along with the digital. So it's not that digital is going to take over all the jobs of human. Always you will have this mix kind of parallelly going. But the element where we had probably 10 years before and now the mix has kind of changed, where the digital is kind of being more trained and able to take more transactional work, and the human element of the talent is actually keep upskilling with their knowledge and absorbing more talent, which kind of make them to go up in the value chain and start working on the more complex work. Technology, yeah, we spoke about that. Data, we spoke about that, so probably we can move on to the next one. So this is the core essence of this presentation, dynamic capabilities model. I'm not too sure whether everyone knows about this particular model. It's quite of a famous model by David J. Teese, and then probably you could read that book, which is very useful for any organization to adapt. So what he says is, how do you actually create an organization with internal and external capabilities to sense about your threats, opportunities in the external market, and seize that opportunity to go for using your internal and external resources and transform. So We have seen many organizations who have failed in the past because they didn't actually sense properly. Like even it could be Nokia or Kodak or etc. But similarly, there are organizations, they had a good capability of sensing, but they didn't actually seize that opportunity because they didn't have that capability or capacity to turn around within that short span of time. Because market is moving very fast, and it's quite important for us to actually ensuring we can move fast also if we actually seizing one opportunity from the market. Transform, again, same. It's all about identify your internal capabilities. Always you will not actually have all the capabilities internally built, and therefore it's quite important to actually engage externally by building or by acquiring or by partnering with third parties to ensure they could actually help you developing the whole product or service that you can go to market or speed to market, where you can actually capture the clients. If you could move to the next slide, it's a related one called, again, open innovation model. Actually, I have created this model as part of my doctoral thesis, so still I haven't tested this yet, but this is something, again, from the book of Henry Chesborough. If you read the book called Open Services Innovation, he talks about how you can actually create inside out innovation and outside in innovation in your organization by partnering with your alliances, your service providers, your platform providers. And likewise, how do you create your innovation and take that innovation to the market? And you actually partner with certain other people who are looking at the same product or service, where you can actually sell that as a business as a service. So it's quite important to look at your operating model across functions. If you take from operations, finance, HR, procurement, etc., every organization runs with a strategy. Every organization has a BAU structure to manage the current running operations, and always you will have projects. So we always have challenges in kind of bringing all three together, and then you will have to actually keep innovating. So you have seen organizations started with appointing some CXO levels called Chief Transformation Officer, Chief Digital Officer, etc., right? And now companies are evolving to the next level. They are talking about Chief Innovation Officer, right? Chief Energy Officer, right? And Chief Orchestrator. So the way of thinking is changing. So it's not more centralized view, but it's a decentralized kind of way where you can actually manage change and innovation in each of your departments. But then you kind of come up with a framework where, end of the day, you can manage the change within the organization more collaboratively, because it's quite important. Otherwise, what will happen is you will start to create things in silos without actually interacting with different departments. Therefore, it's quite important to get calibrated on the ways of working within each of these organizations, and that will kind of create a more powerful innovation process within your organization, rather than you actually sitting and doing your process or what you have been asked to do and thinking, okay, someone will come and look at your process, or it's not my job, it's IT's job, it's digital team's job, and I'm not going to change anything, right? So that's where the mindset is currently changing. Every person actually involved in their process start to think from the digital standpoint and from the data standpoint as well. So it's quite important to actually train our people accordingly, so then they can start thinking, and then you can start to see a change in your organizational level. We can move on to the next slide, where it talks about the readiness, right? So as an organization, it's quite important for you to align your strategy, where you want to see yourself, and do you have the capacity and capability aligned to deliver your strategy. So it's quite important to take a stock and then to do a readiness checklist to understand what are the things that you could do versus what are the things that you could actually partner with, or you need to acquire, or M&As that you will help to grow the business and be ready to be innovative as well. So it's quite important to understand your suppliers, partners, customers' needs, and it's quite important to be a good listener. If you don't listen to your customers, and if you don't listen to your employees or your community, that's where you kind of go wrong. If you are a good listener, always you will be innovating something that it will serve the purpose and serve the need that the customers and the clients are looking for at the point of time. Yeah, we can move on. Culture plays a big role. You can have every good thing in your organization in terms of your digital assets, your capital, and your people, etc. But if you don't really have your culture aligned, that's where you will actually struggle to move fast with your vision. So it's quite important to ensure we kind of inculcate a mindset where people can look at things in a more holistic way. And also we always look at how do you inculcate entrepreneurial mindset in people, because what we have seen is, if you're an entrepreneur, you always actually have that energy, passion, you want to actually thrive in your business, you want to penetrate the market, you are ready to take risk, and you go for it. But when you actually hire the same person in the corporate, their mentality or the mindset changes, right? They always look at in a small circle of life within what they have, and they don't want to kind of do the same way if they are running their own business, right? So that's why it kind of creates more energy, more power, and more thinking, more innovation. And that's quite important, and that should be driven by our values and culture in our organization. And as a leaders, we need to take a lead, and we always need to constantly motivate people and empower people to be the entrepreneurs of their own areas, where they can actually come up with some creative ideas. So just to recap what we have actually gone through, some of the key points, it's quite important in digital driven organizations. And also as a future organization, if you want to build resilience, and if you want to be a future ready organization, because you can't actually be a future proof organization at the rate that we are changing. You can't just say, okay, now my organization is future proof and nothing will happen in the next 2 to 3 years time. But you can be a future ready organization to face the challenges and create that agility at an enterprise level, and create that nimbleness where organization can sense, seize, and reconfigure their assets quickly, where you can actually cut the bureaucratic organizational structure, decision-making delays, funding, and etc. That kind of creates the power of creating a future ready organizations. And it's quite important to have these elements in that kind of organizations if you are running. As I mentioned, you need to be a good listener. listen to your customers, employees, competitors, markets, etc. And similarly, build a collaborative ecosystem. That's very important. We have seen in the market, even if you look at the iPhone, the glass, right? It's actually prepared or manufactured by Samsung, or the chips are manufactured by someone else, right? But they don't really go head to head as a war in the supply chain. Obviously, as a product, they have different strategies to market and different segments they actually target to market. But as a organization, they create ecosystems where they collaborate to win-win situations to create. And that's the very reason I mentioned here the war and sports metaphors that we use, not anymore usable in the modern business models. It's not about one person wins, another person lose. It's always now what we are looking at. How do you create a win-win scenario? And like how even Google and Microsoft have kind of adopted that approach, where they are bringing so many freelance developers to different ways of kind of bringing everyone together. But end of the day, everyone is winning and everyone is thriving. Next one is very important. Invest in ESG, environmental, social, and governance. If you would have followed the last G7 very closely, a lot of emphasis has gone to ESG. So organizations are looking at how do you build an organization which actually really supports the ESG of the framework, so that we can build something sustainable, usable, and less harmful for the environment as well. Equally, in the UK, diversity, equity, and inclusion plays a massive role. And that's something I have seen very visibly. Organizations take steps to ensure they are well diversified. And also personally, I have seen the boardrooms who are actually have well diversified CXOs bring a lot of new ideas and new thinking compared to you hire someone at the same gender, from same place, same education, actually kind of, versus you bring a lot of color when you have a gender balance, gender diversity, or any other diversities that you bring to your boardroom. Last but not least, inculcate entrepreneurial mindset, again, which I explained to you already. So that's very important if you want to really thrive in your business. That's all. And the closing point, just a saying that I always use wherever I actually talk. If you could move to the next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, ordinary people look for an opportunity. Extraordinary people create opportunities. So I always believe in this one. I actually started to, or in my initial days, I always look for an opportunity. Okay, can I move here? Can I move there? Can I get a promotion? Can I get something else in the short term? But then when you transform yourself and when you start develop your skills and your talent and exposure, everything, that's where you actually, without your knowledge, you are creating opportunities for yourself, and endless opportunities you can create globally. So I'm a big believer, and I have seen the remit of having this kind of ways of thinking, which really helps people to move very fastly and rapidly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beadle. Let me just, yeah, it was a fantastic, I would say more, a reality of what's happening out there in the world, and how you have beautifully conceptualized it. was, I think, the essence of what you did, Beadle. I really like the point you mentioned about how now it's not about killing people and beating competitors, but it's all about understanding where each of the people's skill sets are, and then asking yourself, how do we join so that we could meet consumer needs better? And I think it's fantastic. I suppose when you get these kinds of global experience, and when you're sitting in places like where you are right now, you look at life differently. And of course you are in the cutting edge because you're working with all the top companies, and they are driving the market, and you're supporting them with your expertise. So it's a very interesting situation that you're in. Biddle, what are the key differences you see of working in Sri Lanka versus UK? I mean, we really loved what you said, and I mean, I really didn't know that you were going to share your doctoral argument, which is actually, when I looked at it, I suddenly realized it's so true what you're saying. But if you look at the real brass tacks of working, coming to work, going back, meeting your customers, understanding what they want, dealing with different resources in different parts of the world. What are the key differences you see, Beadle?
To be honest, I haven't seen any major differences. That is probably thanks to WNS as well, because we create that kind of an ecosystem in the organization back in Sri Lanka as well. When you walk inside the office, you will feel like you are in London or States or Australia, because you are kind of interacting on a day-to-day basis with the same customers, their needs, and the ways of thinking. But as a country, if you look at Sri Lanka, of course, is one of the best country with talent, and a lot of people actually investing in their education, and they want to really thrive, and they want to really come up fast and compete with the global education and global expectations, etc. From UK standpoint, it's quite similar. Obviously, London, New York, Japan, or Hong Kong, Singapore, if you take, the ways of working is becoming more important. They give importance to ways of working. Even if you actually meet a client, or when you actually start interacting with an organization, or if you start a project, the first meeting, they don't talk about the project. They don't talk about anything else. They just talk about the ways of working, and they try to calibrate between people from different culture, different background, and say, okay, this is how we are going to work. This is how I work. And then they actually kind of calibrate and calibrate between them, which will help to kind of be more successful, right? So that's where I think organizations are moving, and kind of one of the differences that we need to understand and study, especially when you are working cross borders.
I mean, my mind just goes back to my days when I was working for Rekit Ben Kaiser, where, the system that we worked was, whether you're sitting in Sri Lanka, or whether you're sitting in Calcutta, or whether you're sitting in Hull, it doesn't matter. Your consumer is the same. The way they think is the same, and you got to operate to see how you could meet that. And it's so true, because when you put on your TV, what you see is similar in each of these countries, because communication is now global. Have you seen any key changes? If you say that there is no change in the way you work in Sri Lanka and UK, you see any changes happening to the way you work because of the pandemic, Beadle?
Pandemic, of course, has brought some ways of working that we need to adjust, right? So obviously, everyone started to work from home instead of working from office. Certain processes, certain departments, certain organizations are predominantly used to work based on human interactions, right? And when you put a complete shut to such businesses and industries, that's where actually it kind of created more chaos in certain businesses. But that those chaoses have actually created in a positive way to certain organizations where they have radically changed their whole business model and how they are thinking now. For example, in insurance business, especially in London, when you are doing we'll say PNC insurance or any broker-based insurance, it's a 300 to 400-year-old business, and London market and the Lloyd's of London, they actually strongly believe meeting brokers face to face with a file of papers, and they go and negotiate. They do the pricing, they agree the terms and conditions, everything in paper. They bring back the paper, put it in the system, and all of that. But everything actually got changed because of pandemic. Now they have come up with new platforms. Some of the existing platforms have been more leveraged to do business remotely and virtually. So obviously pandemic has created a lot of chaos, but on the other hand, it has opened up the mindset for people to think something radically to change their business models as well.
If I just move to Rajiv, I mean, Rajiv heads IT in one of the top companies in Sri Lanka. It's ranked number 25 by LMD. Rajiv, do you see major changes or issues or challenges with regard to working in the pandemic, especially from this IT side, Rajiv?
So, Rahanta, yeah, I think, first of all, thank you. I'm honored to be on this panel with Beadle and Navaraj and her. So, thank you for inviting me to share my thoughts. Yeah, so talking of the pandemic and its effect, so there was a sort of a paradigm shift in the way we had to operate. And we were operating, more or less in the brick and mortar space. So we had to shift. But surprisingly, all the technologies that we needed to survive in the pandemic world was available. So I'm in the sort of the financial services industry. So to take interaction with customers, payment methods, online, mobile, whatever, onboarding customers, all that was already in existence, but probably not used, exploited as much as it should have. Dealing with our own employees, then we had to move to work from home. So work from home meant more strain on the digital infrastructure. But then again, the Zoom was available, the MS Teams already had been in, everything was there. It was just a matter of implementing or getting onto those platforms to interact with our employees. And if you take our company, I mean, the number of meetings, particularly with the training, L&D, learning and development, the productivity of that department, zoomed up multifold. So again, I think that the pandemic pushed us into another level. So from say a more operational point of view, I would think that the cybersecurity aspect, working from home, using more digital infrastructure, etc., and having systems that were not, tailored to fully working from home, the cybersecurity aspect is something that maybe everyone needs to have a hard look at. And if we are to expand our payment services, customer services, and more online, that aspect of automation may we have newer challenges in the future.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you very much. I think that was fantastic. So what you're basically saying is that, yes, in terms of the security, because of you have data transfer that was happening, that is one area that needs to be really looked at. And in fact, Professor Priyantha, the other day at one of the board meetings, you were citing that education institutes must actually look at more launching cybersecurity as a way forward in terms of actually getting the skill set up. Professor, what is your thought from your end and your perspective?
Thank you very much, Rohan, for inviting me to the panel. And also, I think it was a very interesting topic, as well as I think we have to thank Beadle for bringing all these his perspectives onto this. I think I really like the sort of area, especially he started from the digital transformation and also how the digital transformation have helped, especially during the pandemic period, to re-strategize their organization business models sometimes. And also he brought in the pretty much the capabilities of the businesses, to align their strategies, especially for the digital transformation. And then I think what I would always believe is in order for organizations, especially with all these dynamic capabilities, moving to the digital transformation, if they want to sort of implement this digital transformation, probably they have to think of 3 areas, especially in terms of an organization. Definitely technology itself. Then of course even that Beadle was talking about multiple emerging technologies, IoT, machine learning, AI, blockchain, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, the next would be the people, and then the processes. So then again, he touched upon the processes that to be revised or maybe re-engineer. So without that, it might be very difficult for us to think of digital transformation. So I would like talk about a little about the people, because since we are pretty much engaged in the education industry, as well as we are trying to sort of build the capacity, especially the talent pool required for this digital transformation. And again, if you just look at the capabilities of the digital transformation, I would say there is some capability distance of digital transformation. So there are 3 areas, pretty much again, technical distance and the market and the business model distance. And when it comes to technical distance, it directly matches with the people, because now organizations are looking, towards the transformation, digital transformation. And then the what we really want to see whether, we have the talent pool already maybe trained or maybe retrained or maybe reskilled, required for the digital transformation. Sometimes one of the challenges that we see is probably the organization are looking for the transformation, especially emerging technologies, and then probably we might not have enough talent pool in-house as well as in external. So that would be a challenge that I would say that people, the organizations are facing. So therefore, I think as the education institutions, there'll be a sort of responsibility for us to bringing all emerging technologies, not only for information technology computing, even for the business degree programs, even the low end and so forth, because with the digital transformation, entire business landscape would change. And when pretty much they will be using all the the analytics, maybe the business process automation and so on and so forth, those technologies will be used. So therefore, I think we may have to think of bringing in all these cutting edge technologies into the curriculum, and then therefore we had to take steps to sort of train and then maybe retrain or maybe reskill these generations to suit into the digital transformation that is expected by the industries. That is what I always believe. We have to make certain steps to do that one, and then of course that will definitely help the industry as well as the the talent pool.
Thank you, Pranta. Beadle, what do you think of this point that was brought out, where we were talking about this whole area of cyber security? Your thought on it?
Yeah, so the more you move to digital, you will always have the threat as well, right? Because everything you are bringing cloud-based digital footprints you are leaving behind, and obviously that will actually give opportunity for the people who are looking at any loopholes to get in as well, right? So as you've seen during the pandemic, most of the time we have heard certain organization at all levels, at a global organization level, even if you have kind of the best technologies and cybersecurities in place, but still you have prone to any threat of cyber attacks. So that's quite important for us to actually create cybersecurity policies, legalize some of the laws in the country, create that infrastructure, and create that awareness as well. So if you look at Sri Lanka, the global cybersecurity index, if you look at back in 2017, I think we were at around 72 or something, the world rank. And today we are at 83. So it's a question of, are we improving our technology and the digital space? While we are improving, what are the things we have taken considering the threat and the cyber attacks and the cyber security as well? So we are not fully there yet, but it's another area that definitely the government, the regulatory bodies, and the organizations who are leading digital and technology space need to take it quite serious. And we need to kind of come up with the right level of legal laws, infrastructure, and the collaboration. There are about 5 to 6 areas they look at when they actually assess these index. So it's quite important to actually be there on the right level. And we have seen certain countries like Tanzania and Ghana and Kenya are above us in those index. So it's quite important for us to actually take these security and the index quite serious and work with the rest of the corporate organizations.
Sorry for putting you on the spot, Beadle, but I mean, you have the top BPO companies operating in Sri Lanka. I mean, if you take the ecosystem of marketing, we have the top 20 ad agencies who operate, and each of them have come out with their AI-based digital solutions to consumer markets. We have the top 5 research agencies around the world operating in Sri Lanka, from Kanta to Quantum to Nielsen's. I mean, you have it.
Yeah.
I mean, we are developing a new city, the port city, and of course, AT Kearney ranks us in the top 25 in terms of solution-based, knowledge-based, I mean, kind of digital connectivity. I mean, how come that in the cybersecurity area we have gone down, Beadle? I mean, that's fundamental, no?
Yeah, these index are actually assessed based on the country's infrastructure, and also governments actually plays a major role in the way that they are running cybersecurity as well. It's not the ones who are running the privately held corporates and organizations alone. It's a mix of both. So that's where you probably see some of the world's leading organizations. They are, of course, running with high secured environments when they are operating from multi-countries and geographies. And probably that level of security is not practiced in our local organizations or probably with the entire country, right? So as a country, I think there is a massive opportunity there for us to step up and bring these to the global level. And that's where I think we need to work towards. And for example, your Data Protection Act to, for example, UK and Europe, if you take, we have GDPR, right? But similarly, we need to actually build something for each of these countries who are looking at to step up. They're protecting their data and their information security as well.
So do you see that in countries where the center wants to have more control of the data flow, that sometimes cybersecurity does not come to play?
No, the countries, because obviously the countries are governed by governments, and the governments actually drive certain policies where they want to actually see as part of their organizations and the corporates to follow, right? So that's where when GDPR was first ruled out by the European Union, they were very particular about how this information should be managed and who should be owning the data for the people who are actually the companies are serving their services and products. So it's something that one single corporate can't take ownership. It should be driven by large governments and kind of unions. And that's where I think in our region, probably we need to kind of develop from the Southeast Asia standpoint.
So, Beadle, let me just we have a set of youngsters who are listening to you. And you have not only made it in the Sri Lankan industry, but you are now playing the game at a global level in terms of competitiveness, in terms of sharpening your brain. So what made you select this career? How did it happen?
So I actually started with banking, as I mentioned, and then this particular opportunity knocked my door. And at that point of time, I was not aware about who is WNS and what they do. I had no clue about it. But when I first heard about it, I kind of had that fire in me thinking, okay, let's take a chance. Let's take some risk. And it worked well, right? So, and then when I joined WNS, I thought, okay, probably I'll stay only for 2 years and then I will move on to other organizations as I grow. But then here I am with them still probably 16 plus years time. What makes me to choose this career? I always been in mostly on the financial services side, but then when I moved to WNS, what inspired me is that the creativity and the innovation that we need to bring every day for a different solution and different problem solving, where you need to actually bring the digital and the data infused in everything what you do. So it's quite important. You can be actually doing anything related to any domains. It could be financial services, or it could be manufacturing, telco, or healthcare, procurement, etc. It's the domain that probably you will specialize, but it's quite important when you actually kind of selecting a career, always choose to actually kind of start looking at digital and data along with your career. So that's where it kind of gives more opportunity and makes your life more exciting, because you don't need to just sit and do certain things in a very monotonous way, because always it brings more creativity and innovation in you when you actually infuse data and technology in your domain.
So what is your advice to youngsters, Beadle? I mean, the guys are studying masters, they're watching you. I mean, I really liked your argument that you gave with regard to the new model that you are trying to drive for your thesis. What's your advice?
So I kind of follow certain principles. One is actually, first of all, for everyone, congratulations, and please keep on upskilling yourself through studying something what you are studying. And definitely it helped me because I studied in Sri Lanka. I did my master's in Sri Lanka and doctorate in Sri Lanka as well, still yet to finish. But then I chose a place where you actually can study something which can be recognized and can be applied to your day-to-day life. So that's quite important, and it should be globally recognized as well. So when I actually moved to UK and for my visa process, one of the things is I should be actually having a recognized degree or MBA studied in English. And when I produced my certificate, they didn't even ask a question where I studied because the award was given by a international university. And straight away they said, you don't need to go through any further assessment and we will recognize this certificate, right? So it's quite important for you to pick the right place and right institute and right degree, which is recognized. And then you have to be very curious. Curiosity kills, they say, right? But in my world, you have to do three things. One is you have to be curious, courageous, and confident. It's quite important to stick to these 3 C's.
Thank you very much, Beadle. And before I wind off, what advice would you give young Beadle who is 19 years old?
Do what you like to do and love what you are doing. So it's quite important to do what you love and love what you do. So that will lead you a path. And as I said, always keep everything open and be positive, be passionate, and be curious.
Thank you very much, Beadle. And as soon as pandemic is coming to a close, I'll definitely come and see you in UK. But Sri Lanka misses you very much, and especially Rotary, my good friend. You know, when you come, I think we need to have one of those Rotary get-togethers. Yeah, sorry, Beadle.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for having me. As I say always, there is no substitute for mother and motherland. So I definitely miss Sri Lanka. And I hope when the travel restrictions are eased off, so definitely I'll see you on the other side of the green. So thank you for again having me. It was lovely to see you again and the rest of the guys. So all the very best.
I'd like to thank Rajiv Kasichetti, who took time off from a very tough schedule, and of course Priyantha, Professor Priyantha Baduke, who is actually, I mean, Kumaravadu, who is fantastic in terms of conceptualizing and driving the IT industry, not only in Sri Lanka, but he's at a national level also. So I'd like to thank our 2 panelists on the session. And can I hand over to Kaushali?
Doctor, indeed, such a wonderful, inspirational, and informative session for all our IT students who are really looking forward for these changes and planning to embrace these changes. So thank you so much, the panel, for giving all of our students this input today, and definitely spending your valuable time to share this knowledge. And I'm sure our students will cherish these memories, at the same time learn tiny experiences that you share. And we would like to see them, all of you, all dear students, just like all these 3 panel members. We would really like to see all of you in that platform one day, very soon. So hoping and wishing all of you the very best for that. We come to an end of another session, and we will meet back again in another week's time with another important spectrum, and of course with another important person in the industry. Until then, do take care and stay safe. Good night from Sri Lanka.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.